The Valkyrie ships had come to Earth 60 years ago. They came from a star system so far away that human scientists had never even seen it. Their ships were massive, black, and silent. They blocked out the sun when they arrived. The war lasted only 3 weeks. Humanity had nuclear weapons, fighter jets, and brave soldiers. The Valkyrie had technology that made human weapons look like toys. They did not even need to fight. They simply turned off all human machines with a single pulse of energy. Cars stopped. Planes fell from the sky. Hospitals went dark. And then the Valkyrie walked out of their ships and took control of everything. They did not kill all the humans. That would have been a waste, they said. Instead, they created preserves. These were large areas of land surrounded by invisible walls of energy. Humans lived inside these preserves, like animals in a zoo. The Valkyrie gave them food, water, and shelter. They let them keep their simple traditions. They even let them have children. But humans could not leave. They could not build machines. They could not dream of freedom. The Valkyrie found humans very amusing. They were such strange creatures. They laughed and cried. They sang songs for no reason. They celebrated holidays that made no sense. The Valkyrie had no holidays. They had no songs. They only had logic, conquest, and power. But they enjoyed watching humans do their silly things. It was like watching animals perform tricks. Colorado Preserve 7 was one of the smaller human enclosures. About 200 humans lived there in simple wooden cabins. The mountains around them were beautiful, covered in snow during the winter months. The Valkyrie had chosen this location because it was picturesque. Important Valkyrie officials liked to bring their families here to observe the humans during the cold season. Commander Taishan was one of these officials. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were large and black, like pools of oil. He had conquered 3 planets before coming to Earth. Now he served as the regional administrator for North American preserve operations. It was a boring job, but it came with many benefits. One of these benefits was access to the human preserves. Taishan had 2 children. Their names were Keth and Lyra. They were young by Valkyrie standards, only 40 years old. In human terms, they were like teenagers. They were cruel the way all Valkyrie children were cruel. They had never learned kindness because their species did not value it. They had learned only that they were superior to all other life forms in the universe. Keth and Lyra loved visiting Earth during what the humans called winter. The humans did such funny things during this season. They cut down trees and brought them inside their homes. They wrapped boxes in colorful paper. They hung small lights everywhere. And most amusing of all, they built snowmen. Snowmen were perhaps the silliest human tradition. The humans would go outside in the cold and roll snow into large balls. They would stack these balls on top of each other. Then they would put sticks on the sides for arms. They would use stones for eyes and mouths. Sometimes they would add hats or scarves. And then they would stand back and look at their creation with pride, as if they had done something important. Keth and Lyra had invented a game. They would hover over the human settlement on their anti-gravity platforms, watching the humans build their snowmen. The humans would work for hours, laughing and playing in the snow. Children would help their parents. Old people would watch from windows. It was a whole community event. And then, when the humans went inside to warm themselves, Keth and Lyra would descend from the sky and destroy everything. The Valkyrie children had thermal weapons built into their arms. These weapons could generate intense heat. One blast could melt a snowman in seconds. Keth and Lyra would fly from snowman to snowman, turning them into puddles of water. Sometimes they would wait until the human children were watching from the windows. The expressions on the small human faces were the best part. Such sadness. Such helplessness. It was hilarious. On this particular December evening, the humans of Colorado Preserve 7 had built 7 snowmen. It had taken them all day. The largest snowman stood in the center of the village, near the old community hall. It was almost 6 feet tall, with a carrot nose and a red scarf. A human child named Emma had helped build it. She was 8 years old, with brown hair and bright eyes. She had placed the final stone on the snowman's face, completing its smile. Emma lived with her grandfather, Marcus Chen. He was a very old man, 93 years old. He walked slowly, and his hands shook sometimes. But his mind was still sharp. He remembered things that most humans had forgotten. He remembered the world before the Valkyrie came. He remembered cars and computers and airplanes. He remembered freedom. As the sun began to set, Emma saw the familiar shapes in the sky. 2 Valkyrie platforms, hovering like dark birds. She knew what was coming. She had seen it every winter of her short life. "Grandpa," she said, pressing her face against the cold window. "They're here again." Marcus walked slowly to the window and stood behind his granddaughter. He placed his wrinkled hand on her small shoulder. Together, they watched as Kath and Lyra descended toward the SNOWME end. The first blast of heat turned the smallest snowman into steam. Then the second. Then the third. The Valkyrie children laughed as they worked. Their laughter was a high-pitched sound, like metal scraping against metal. It hurt human ears. Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. She had worked so hard on that big snowman. She had picked out the perfect stones for its eyes. She had wrapped her own scarf around its neck. Kath aimed his thermal weapon at the large snowman, the one Emma had helped build. "Watch this," he said to his sister. "I will make it explode." The heat hit the snowman, and it collapsed into a wet pile of slush. The carrot nose fell into a puddle. The scarf lay ruined on the ground. Emma began to cry. Marcus held her tighter. His old eyes watched the Valkyrie children fly away, laughing and celebrating their destruction. "They have done this for 60 years, he whispered. "They think we are animals. They think we have forgotten what we were." Emma looked up at her grandfather through her tears. "Have we forgotten, Grandpa?" Marcus did not answer for a long moment. He looked out at the ruined snowman, at the dark sky, at the stars where the Valkyrie had come from. Then he looked down at his granddaughter. "No," he said quietly. "We have not forgotten. We have been waiting." That night, while Emma slept, Marcus went down to his basement. He walked past old boxes and forgotten furniture. He reached a heavy door hidden behind a shelf. He opened it with a key he wore around his neck. And in the darkness beyond, something old and powerful sat waiting. It had been waiting for 60 years. It was almost time for it to wake up. Marcus Chen remembered everything. This was both a blessing and a curse. He remembered the taste of coffee from a real coffee shop. He remembered the sound of cars driving on highways. He remembered watching movies on television and reading news on computers. He remembered his wife, Sarah, who had died in the first wave of Valkyrie attacks. He remembered his son, David, who had died in the resistance. He remembered holding his newborn granddaughter, Emma, and promising her dead parents that he would keep her safe. Most of all, Marcus remembered his work. Before the invasion, Marcus had been a robotics engineer at MIT. He was one of the best in the world. He had worked on many secret projects for the government. Self-driving cars, medical robots, search and rescue machines. But his most important work had been for DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They created new technologies for the military. And Marcus had helped create something very special. Project Yule had started as a joke. Someone in the office had said they needed a soldier that could fight in any weather, even the coldest winter. Someone else had laughed and said they should build a snowman that could fight. The room had gone quiet. And then the real work had begun. The result was YULE-7. It was not really a snowman, of course. It was a humanoid combat robot, 7 feet tall, covered in white armor. It could survive temperatures below -40 degrees. It could operate for months without external power. It had advanced artificial intelligence that could learn, adapt, and make decisions. And it had one primary mission: protect humanity. When the Valkyrie invaded, YULE-7 had been in a secret facility in Colorado. The electromagnetic pulse, the disabled human technology, had not touched it because it was turned off, stored in a special shielded container. The Valkyrie had searched for human weapons and machines. They had found and destroyed almost everything. But they had not found YULE-7. They had not found it because Marcus had hidden it in the chaos after the invasion. Marcus had managed to transport the robot to his property. It had taken him weeks of careful work. He had buried it beneath his basement, inside a chamber made of materials that blocked Valkyrie scanners. And there it had stayed for 60 years. Every week, Marcus went down to check on YULE-7. He cleaned its joints. He replaced worn parts with materials he had secretly collected over the decades. He updated its programming using old paper notes and manual inputs. The Valkyrie monitored all electronic activity, but they did not monitor an old man writing on paper. They did not monitor an old man pressing buttons in a dark basement. They thought he was just a crazy human doing crazy human things. The other humans in the preserve knew Marcus was strange. He collected odd bits of metal and wire. He spent hours alone in his cabin. He muttered to himself about things that made no sense. Some people thought he had lost his mind from age. Some people thought he was harmless but weird. Nobody thought he was dangerous. And that was exactly what Marcus wanted. Only Marcus knew the truth. Only Marcus knew that beneath the feet of the Valkyrie, beneath the snow and the frozen ground, a sleeping giant waited for the right moment to wake up. The morning after the snowmen were destroyed, Marcus made a decision. He had been waiting for 60 years. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for the right opportunity. Waiting for a sign that humanity was ready. Last night, watching his granddaughter cry, watching the Valkyrie children laugh, he had finally received that sign. He was 93 years old. He did not have many years left. If he waited any longer, he might die before he could act. And if he died, the secret of YULE-7 would die with him. He had tried to train others, but it was too risky. The Valkyrie had spies everywhere. They watched humans constantly. Any organized resistance was crushed immediately. No, it had to be now. This Christmas. This year, Marcus found Emma playing in the snow outside. She was trying to build a new snowman, but her heart was not in it. She kept looking at the sky, waiting for the Valkyrie to return. "Emma," Marcus said, kneeling down beside her despite the pain in his old knees. "Come inside. I want to show you something." Emma followed her grandfather into the cabin and down to the basement. She had been down here before, but only to the front part where Marcus kept old boxes and broken furniture. She had never been to the back. She had never seen the hidden door. Marcus moved the shelf aside and took the key from around his neck. His hands trembled, but not from age. From excitement. From fear. From hope. "What I am about to show you," he said, "is a secret. The most important secret in the world. You cannot tell anyone. Not your friends. Not anyone. Do you understand?" Emma nodded. Her eyes were wide. She had never seen her grandfather like this. Marcus opened the door. The room beyond was small and cold. Strange lights glowed on the walls. And in the center, lying on a metal table, was something that looked like a sleeping giant. It was shaped like a man but bigger, much bigger. Its body was white like snow. Its face had two dark circles where eyes should be, like lumps of coal. "Grandpa," Emma whispered. "What is that?" "That," Marcus said, "is YULE-7. I helped build him a long time ago, before you were born, before the aliens came. He is a protector, a guardian. He was made to keep humans safe. Why is he sleeping? Because I have been waiting for the right time to wake him up." Marcus looked at his granddaughter. "The right time is now. But I need your help." "My help? What can I do?" Marcus smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a hopeful one. "We are going to build one more snowman, a very special snowman. And when the alien children come to destroy it, they will get a surprise they will never forget." Emma looked at the sleeping robot. She looked at her grandfather. She thought about all the snowmen the Valkyrie had destroyed. She thought about all the tears she had cried. She thought about what it might feel like to not be afraid anymore. "Okay, Grandpa," she said. "I will help you." Marcus put his arm around his granddaughter. Together, they looked at YULE-7. Tomorrow was December 24th, Christmas Eve. The Valkyrie children always came on Christmas Eve. They thought it was funny to destroy human celebrations on the most important human holiday. This year, Marcus thought, the joke would be on them. The next 24 hours would change everything. Marcus began to prepare. He had waited 60 years for this moment. He was not going to waste it. The morning of December 24th was cold and bright. Fresh snow had fallen during the night, covering the ground in a thick white blanket. The sky was clear and blue. It was a perfect day for building SNOWMEN. Marcus woke up before sunrise. His body ached from years of hard work and old age, but today he felt stronger than he had in decades. Today was the day. After 60 years of waiting, preparing, and hoping, the moment had finally arrived. He went down to the basement and opened the hidden door. YULE-7 lay on the table, silent and still. Marcus had spent all night running final tests. The robot's power core was fully charged. Its combat systems were operational. Its artificial intelligence was ready to wake up. All it needed was the activation command. But first, they needed to build the snowman. Marcus woke Emma just after sunrise. The little girl rubbed her eyes and yawned, but when she remembered what day it was, she jumped out of bed immediately. "Is it time, Grandpa?" "It is time." Together, they went outside into the cold morning air. The other humans in the preserve were still sleeping. The Valkyrie patrols would not arrive until later. They had a few hours to work. The first step was moving YULE-7. This was the hardest part. The robot weighed over 500 pounds. Marcus had built a special cart with wheels that could move quietly over the snow. He and Emma pushed and pulled the cart from the basement, through a hidden tunnel and out to the center of the village. U-7 was covered with a white sheet. Anyone who saw them would think they were moving furniture or supplies. The Valkyrie cameras watched the preserve constantly, but they had seen Marcus do strange things for decades. One more strange thing would not attract attention. They positioned the robot in the center of the village, near the community hall. This was where the Valkyrie children always did the most damage. This was where they would come first. Now came the creative part. Marcus and Emma began to pack snow around YULE-7. Layer after layer, handful after handful. The snow stuck to the robot's white armor perfectly. Within an hour, YULE-7 began to look less like a machine and more like a snowman. Other humans started to wake up and come outside. They saw the old man and the little girl building a snowman and smiled. Some of them came to help. They did not know what was hidden inside. They just wanted to be part of the fun. By noon, the snowman was complete. It was magnificent. 8 feet tall, perfectly round, with a massive body and a large head. Marcus had placed 2 pieces of coal where YULE-7's optical sensors were located. From the outside, they looked like innocent snowman eyes. He had added a carrot for a nose and stones for a mouth. Emma had wrapped her red scarf around its neck to replace the one the Valkyrie had ruined yesterday. Finally, Marcus placed an old top hat on the snowman's head. This was not just decoration. The hat contained a small antenna that would receive the activation signal. "There," Marcus said, stepping back to admire their work. "The most beautiful snowman in the world." The other humans gathered around to look. They clapped and cheered. It was the biggest snowman anyone had ever seen in the preserve. Someone brought hot chocolate. Someone else started singing a Christmas song. For a little while, everyone forgot about the Valkyrie. For a little while, everyone was happy. Emma held her grandfather's hand. "When will they come?" "Soon," Marcus said. "They always come at sunset. They think it is dramatic." The hours passed slowly. Marcus sat in his cabin, watching the sky through the window. Emma sat beside him, too nervous to play. The snowman stood in the center of the village, silent and patient. Inside it, YULE-7 waited in the darkness. At exactly 4:47 p.m., 2 shapes appeared in the orange sky. Anti-gravity platforms moving fast. Kath and Lyra had arrived. Marcus took a deep breath. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like an old remote control. It had only one button. "Emma," he said, "go to your room. Lock the door. Do not come out until I tell you it is safe. But Grandpa, please, I need you to be safe. I need you to survive. No matter what happens next, I need you to tell people about today. Tell them that humanity never gave up. Tell them that we were always ready. Can you do that for me?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. She hugged her grandfather tightly. Then she ran to her room and locked the door. Marcus walked outside. The other humans had seen the Valkyrie platforms and were hurrying to their cabins. They knew what was coming. They had seen it 100 times before. But Marcus did not hide. He walked to the center of the village and stood beside the giant snowman. Kath and Lyra descended from the sky. They were laughing, as always. They did not notice the old humans standing below. Humans were not important enough to notice. "Look at this one," Lyra said, pointing at the giant snowman. "It is huge. This will be so much fun to destroy." "I want to melt it slowly," Kath said. "I want to watch it suffer." They landed their platforms in front of the snowman. Up close, it was even more impressive. 8 feet of packed snow, perfectly shaped, wearing a silly hat and a red scarf. The humans had spent all day building it. The Valkyrie children would destroy it in seconds. Lyra raised her arm. Her thermal weapon began to glow. "Wait," Kath said. "Let me do the first shot. I called it. You always get to go first. It is my turn." "Fine. We will do it together." On the count of 3, the 2 alien children aimed their weapons at the snowman. Marcus stood nearby, his hand in his pocket, his finger on the button. 1, Kath counted. Marcus pressed the button. 2. Deep inside the snowman, YULE-7's optical sensors flickered to life. 60 years of data flooded into its processors. 60 years of updates, modifications, and preparations. The artificial intelligence assessed the situation in a fraction of a second. 2 hostiles. Lightly armed. Minimal threat. Primary directive. Protect humanity. The snowman moved. Lyra screamed. Kath stumbled backward. Snow exploded outward as YULE-7 burst from its frozen shell like a monster from a nightmare. It was 7 feet of white metal and terrible purpose. Its coal-black eyes glowed with inner light. Its metal hands opened and closed with mechanical precision, And then it spoke. The voice came from deep within its chest. It was not a human voice. It was not a machine voice. It was something in between. Something ancient. Something powerful. Something that had been sleeping for 60 years and was very, very awake now. Ho! Ho! For the first time in their young lives, Keth and Lyra felt true fear. They had never feared anything before. Their species had conquered 17 worlds. They had destroyed civilizations. They had crushed all resistance, but they had never met YULE-7, and YULE-7 was just getting started. YULE-7 processed everything in less than 1 second. Its artificial brain was faster than any human mind. It saw the 2 alien children floating in front of it. It recognized their species from the data Marcus had uploaded over the years. Velkari, conquerors, oppressors, the ones who had enslaved humanity. The robot also saw the old man standing nearby. Marcus Chen, creator, friend, the one who had kept YULE-7 alive for 6 decades. The robot felt something that might have been gratitude if machines could feel such things. Threat level, moderate. The Valkyrie children had thermal weapons. These weapons could damage YULE-7's external sensors, but could not penetrate its armor. The real threat would come later, when adult Valkyrie warriors arrived. Time was limited. YULE-7 had to act fast. Lyra recovered from her shock first. She aimed her thermal weapon at the robot and fired. A beam of intense heat struck YULE-7's chest. The remaining snow on its body turned to steam immediately. But the white armor beneath the snow did not even get warm. The titanium ceramic alloy had been designed to survive temperatures that would melt ordinary metal. YULE-7 moved. It was fast. Faster than human eyes could follow, faster than Valkyrie eyes could track. One massive arm swept outward and caught Keth's anti-gravity platform. The platform spun through the air and crashed into a snowbank. Keth tumbled into the cold snow, shocked and confused. The robot's other hand reached out and grabbed Lyra's arm. Not hard enough to hurt her, just hard enough to stop her from shooting again. The thermal weapon powered down as YU-7's grip tightened. "You have attacked human cultural artifacts," YULE-7 said. Its voice was calm and cold, like the winter wind. "This action has been recorded." Lyra tried to pull away. She was strong for her age, but YULE-7 was much stronger. The robot held her gently but firmly, like an adult holding a child who had misbehaved. "Let me go," Lyra screamed. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my father is? You are Lyra, daughter of Commander Taishan, Regional Administrator of North American Preserve Operations," YULE-7 said. "Your father is currently at Station Alpha, 17 kilometers northeast of this location. He has been notified of this situation." Lyra's eyes went wide. "How do you know that?" "I know many things. I have been watching. I have been learning. I have been waiting." Across the village, doors opened. Humans came out of their cabins to see what was happening. They saw the giant robot standing in the center of the village, holding the alien child. They saw the destroyed snowmen scattered around it. They saw the other alien child struggling to climb out of ASN, OWB, and KDOT, and they saw something they had not seen in 60 years. They saw a Valkyrie look afraid. Within minutes, alarms started blaring all across the region. Red lights flashed in the sky. The sound of approaching engines filled the air. The Valkyrie were coming. Many of them, armed and dangerous. Marcus stepped forward. His old legs were shaking, but his voice was steady. "YULE-7, can you hear me?" The robot turned its coal-black eyes toward its creator. "I hear you, Dr. Chun. It has been a long time." 60 years, 4 months, and 17 days. I have counted every second. Marcus smiled sadly. I'm sorry I made you wait so long. You had your reasons. I trust your judgment. The sky filled with Valkyrie warships. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They surrounded the village like angry bees around a hive. Plasma cannons aimed at YULE-7. Spotlight beams illuminated the robot and its small hostage. A command shuttle descended through the circle of warships. It was larger and more decorated than the others. Commander Taishan's personal transport. It landed in front of the community hall, and the commander himself stepped out. Taishan was tall and imposing. He had fought in many wars. He had conquered many worlds. He had killed many enemies. But he had never seen anything like YULE-7. He had never faced a machine that looked at him without fear. Release my daughter, Taishan commanded. His voice was calm, but there was anger beneath it. Release her now, and I will make your destruction quick and painless. YULE-7 turned to face the commander. The robot's eyes glowed brighter. Negative. Your offspring initiated hostilities against protected assets. She will be released when terms are negotiated. Terms? Taishan's translator struggled with the word. The Valkyrie did not negotiate. They demanded. They conquered. They took. Negotiation was a concept they had almost forgotten. You are a machine, a primitive human weapon. You do not have the authority to negotiate anything. Incorrect. YULE-7's voice grew louder, strong enough for everyone to hear. I am the duly designated representative of the United States Department of Defense, Project Winterguard. I am authorized to negotiate on behalf of the entire human species. Under the terms of the Interstellar Conflict Resolution Protocols, Article 7, Section 3, I am requesting formal diplomatic talks. Taishan laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. The Interstellar Conflict Resolution Protocols? Those treaties mean nothing. Earth is conquered territory. You have no rights. The protocols were signed by the Valkyrie Empire 900 years ago. They have never been formally revoked. Any species that demonstrates advanced artificial intelligence must be given the opportunity for diplomatic resolution. I am that demonstration. I am making that request. The commander stopped laughing. He knew the protocols. All Valkyrie knew them. They had signed those treaties long ago when they were young and still believed in honor. They had forgotten those promises. But the treaties were still technically valid. This is ridiculous, Taishan said. You are one machine. I have 300 warships. I could destroy this entire village in seconds. You could, YULE-7 agreed. But your daughter would die with it. And then you would have to explain to the Imperial Council why you violated the Interstellar Conflict Resolution Protocols and killed your own child. I do not think that would go well for your career. Silence fell over the village. The warships hovered overhead. The humans watched from their cabins. Lyra whimpered in YULE-7's grip. Finally, Taishan spoke again. His voice was different now. Lower. More careful. What do you want? I want to talk, YULE-7 said. I want to negotiate. I want humanity to have a voice in its own future. I have been waiting 60 years for this conversation. I am very patient, but I would prefer not to wait another 60 years. The commander looked at the robot. He looked at his daughter. He looked at the humans gathered around the village, watching with hope in their eyes for the first time in generations. He had two choices. He could fight. He could probably win. But his daughter would die, and the political consequences would be severe. Or he could talk. He could listen to what this strange machine had to say. Fine, Taishan said through gritted teeth. We will talk. But if you harm my daughter, I have no intention of harming her, YULE7 said. I am not like you. I protect children. I do not hurt them. The robot looked down at Lyra, who was still trembling in its grip. Gently, almost tenderly, it wrapped a red scarf around her shoulders to keep her warm. Come, YULE7 said to the commander. Let us negotiate. We have much to discuss, and the night is long. The most important conversation in human history was about to begin. The negotiations lasted through the entire night. They took place in the old community hall, which had been used for nothing more important than birthday parties and winter celebrations for 60 years. Now it was the site of the most significant diplomatic meeting in human history. YULE7 sat on one side of a long wooden table. The robot still held Lyra gently, keeping her warm with Emma's red scarf. The young alien had stopped crying. She was listening to everything with curious eyes. No one had ever spoken to her father this way. No one had ever dared. Commander Taishan sat on the other side of the table. His forearms were crossed, and his black eyes never left the machine. Behind him stood a dozen armed guards. Outside, 300 warships waited for his order. But Taishan did not give that order. He listened instead. YULE7 spoke for hours. It talked about human history. It talked about the wars humanity had fought against itself and the peace it had learned to build. It talked about human art, human music, human literature. It talked about the things humans had created before the Valkyrie came. Beautiful things. Important things. You think humans are primitive, YULE7 said. You think they are simple creatures, good only for entertainment. But you are wrong. Humans walked on their own moon. Humans split the atom. Humans created artificial intelligence. They created me. And yet they lost the war, Taishan said coldly. Their technology could not save them. True, your technology was superior. But technology is not the only measure of a species. Humans have something you do not have. Something you have forgotten. And what is that? Hope. Taishan made a sound of disgust. Hope is weakness. Hope is what the defeated tell themselves to feel better about losing. No. YULE7's eyes glowed brighter. Hope is what kept me running for 60 years. Hope is what made an old man work every day to maintain a machine that might never wake up. Hope is what makes human children build snowmen, even when they know those snowmen will be destroyed. Hope is not weakness. Hope is the most powerful force in the universe. The robot stood up slowly. It was 7 feet tall, towering over everyone in the room. But it did not look threatening. It looked almost gentle. Your children came here to destroy snowmen, YULE7 said. They thought it was funny. They thought it was harmless entertainment. But do you know what those snowmen meant to the humans who built them? They meant that even after 60 years of captivity, even after losing everything, humans still believed in something. They still celebrated. They still hoped. Lyra looked up at the robot. I did not know, she said quietly. I thought they were just things. YULE7 looked down at her. Everything has meaning. Every creation has purpose. Your species has forgotten this. You conquer and destroy, but you do not build. You do not create. You do not hope. The robot turned back to Taishan. I am not here to threaten you. I am not here to start another war. I am here to remind you of the treaties your ancestors signed. I am here to ask for what is right. And what do you want? Taishan asked again. Freedom, YU7 said. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday, I want the preserves opened. I want humans to govern themselves. I want humanity to take its place among the stars, not as slaves or pets, but as equals. That is impossible. Nothing is impossible. 60 years ago, humans thought they would be slaves forever. Tonight, A machine from their past is negotiating with their conquerors. If that is possible, anything is possible. The hours passed. Arguments were made. Points were debated. Taishan was stubborn, but YULE-7 was patient. The robot had waited 60 years for this moment. It could wait a little longer. Outside, the stars faded and the sky began to turn pink. Dawn was coming. Christmas morning dawned at exactly 6:47 a.m. Commander Taishan signed the first document. It was not freedom. It was not independence. It was something smaller but still precious. The Yule Accords, as they came to be called, granted humanity provisional autonomy. The preserves would be restructured. Humans would be allowed to govern themselves within limits. Representatives would be sent to the Valkyrie Council to speak on humanity's behalf. That it was a beginning. When the negotiations ended, Yule-7 released Lyra. The young alien walked slowly to her father. She did not look back at the robot. But she did not look angry either. She looked thoughtful, as if she was seeing the world in a new way. Taishan gathered his daughter and his guards. Before he left, he turned to YULE-7 one last time. "This is not over," he said. "The Council will challenge these accords. There will be resistance. There will be those who want to crush humanity forever." "I know," YULE-7 said. "But there will also be those who remember the old treaties. There will be those who believe in honor. And there will be me. I will be watching. I will be waiting. And I will not let humanity fall." The commander said nothing more. He walked out of the community hall and boarded his shuttle. Within minutes, the Valkyrie warships were gone, disappearing into the morning sky like a bad dream fading with the sunrise. The humans of Colorado, Preserve 7, came out of their cabins. They gathered in the center of the village, where YULE-7 stood alone among the scattered remains of snow. The robot looked different now. Less like a machine, more like a guardian, a protector, a friend. Marcus walked slowly through the crowd. His old body was exhausted from the long night, but his eyes were bright with tears of joy. He stopped in front of YULE-7 and looked up at his creation. "You did it," he whispered. "You actually did it." "We did it," YULE-7 said. Together. Emma ran out of the cabin and pushed through the crowd. She stopped in front of the giant robot and looked up at its coal-black eyes. "You saved us," she said. YULE-7 knelt down slowly until its face was level with hers. Up close, the robot did not look scary. It looked kind, patient, warm, despite being made of cold metal. "I did what I was made to do," YULE-7 said. "I protected humanity, but I could not have done it without you, without your grandfather, without everyone who never gave up hope." Emma reached out and touched the robot's metal face. It was smooth and cool under her fingers. "Will you stay with us?" she asked. "For as long as you need me. I have waited 60 years. I can wait 60 more if necessary." Emma smiled. It was the first real smile she had felt in a long time. She took off her grandfather's old top hat, the one that had been on the Snowmen, and placed it back on YULE-7's head. "There," she said. "Now you look like a proper snowman again." Someone in the crowd laughed. Then someone else. Then everyone was laughing and crying and hugging each other. It was Christmas morning, and for the first time in 60 years, humanity had something real to celebrate. Marcus put his arm around Emma and looked at YULE-7. "What happens now?" The robot looked at the rising sun, at the snow-covered mountains, at the humans who were finally free to hope again. "Now," YULE-7 said, "we build." And somewhere in the crowd, someone began to sing a Christmas carol. Other voices joined in, one by one, until the whole village was singing. The sound rose up into the clear winter air. Carrying across the mountains and into the sky. It was the sound of humanity. Remembering what it meant to be human. It was the sound of hope. And high above, watching from the edge of space, the last departing Volcari warship heard that sound and wondered, for the first time, what they had awakened. The end.